People wanted more from me. They wanted to hear more of my insights and my wisdom. I felt like this fire within me was just lit up. Once I was on that stage, the audience also felt it. So this wasn't about scaling. It was about preparing for true responsibility. And because of that, here's what I believe will matter most in the year ahead. Hey everyone, welcome back to I Can Fit That In. We are launching season 2 in this awesome new year. So happy 2026. As this is the very beginning of season 2 of my show, I just want to say I'm grateful that you're here. And for everyone who's been following along, we all know 2025 was an intense year. There were so many changes, so many recalibrations, so much realignment for most of us, and not always in the same ways. For me, the recalibration was definitely layered. For many of my clients and friends and people in my network, it was confronting, even clarifying, yes, but very complex at times. In many traditions, 2025 was the year of the snake. If you follow feng shui, which I do, or astrology, which I do, you probably have heard of this. It was a year of shedding old identities and exposing truths and doing the deep inner work, whether or not we necessarily wanted to or asked for it. Now we are stepping into the year of the horse, and that matters. This is a year of momentum and movement and courage and change, where things start to move again, but only if we are willing to move with intention. So today I want to reflect on what 2025 asked of us and what it's preparing for us next. If I am honest, which I always am, 2025 was not a year I could have rushed through. I couldn't have done that if I wanted to, even though, yes, I do tend to move fast. This was a year that required presence and discernment like no other. It required from me a kind of courage that doesn't look flashy from the outside. Well, yes, I did have a larger social media presence on purpose, but what it required was the kind of courage where things on the inside were really changing and quite quickly. So as this episode airs on today, January 6th, I'm reflecting not just on what happened, but what it cost, what it revealed, and what it quietly positioned me for in this work and in what's next. I'm first reflecting on where this all began. I started this business 7 years ago because people were asking me for help with the very things that I had worked so hard to help myself with. Burnout, my identity, being attached to outcomes too much and too often, ambition, and how that felt like it was a struggle with my own desires and needs and wants in life, boundaries and meaning and fulfillment and purpose. There was no grand strategy at the beginning. It wasn't like I just all of a sudden had a crystal ball and thought, this is exactly the business I'm going to build and this is how it's going to go. Far from it. It was really just about my own lived experience and the deep inner work and a willingness to be honest about what I was learning along the way of my own journey. And to put that out there in a way that was courageous and brave and authentic, truly being vulnerable, which is not easy. It's not easy for any of us to be vulnerable. But what I learned along the way is that in sharing the stories about what really moved me and changed so much in my own life, inside and out, that is where some of the magic started to happen. That is where the energy started to come back to me. What I was giving, what I was sharing, and my level of authenticity, which was new at that time, that is where people really started to notice and they wanted more. So as you know, years into my business, I had been working with various leaders on a group coaching level, doing a little bit of one-to-one coaching, doing tons of keynotes and workshops for huge associations and professional sports organizations and in the corporate world directly. And I ended up starting a solo podcast about mid-2024. And I started that and ran it for about 6 months, simply because, for one, people wanted more from me. They wanted to hear me talk more. They wanted to hear more of my insights and my wisdom and my lived experience. So that was a direct reflection of listening to what people were asking for. Then within those 6 months came the opportunity to develop this podcast, the I Can Fit That In podcast, knowing full well that my book was on the horizon. The official first season of this show, again, was in response to what I was hearing from all of you. And also for years, I was hearing the same question: when are you going to write a book? You need to write a book. Every stage I would walk off of, every virtual workshop that I would close up, afterwards, people would send me messages or come to me saying exactly that. So I did it. Every evolution of this work has been about listening and listening deeply, paying attention, and meeting people where they are instead of trying to drag them somewhere that I thought they should be. That, I think, is one of the unique qualities that makes me so relatable and keeps me so busy in the work that I do. Within my own business, a defining theme of 2025 was reinvestment. Not just money, although yes, plenty of that, but time, energy, focus, and capacity. I reinvested deeply into Authentically EC, the business, knowing that what I had built the first 5 years would not sustain the next chapter. And any entrepreneur or business owner knows that you have to iterate on what was once successful and what was once serving many people may not continue. And so you have to make changes that are necessary within the business to reinvest in your ideas and your vision and where it's going. For my business, that meant building a brand new website, moving platforms, reworking infrastructure, letting go of systems that technically worked but no longer aligned with who we are becoming. I was future-proofing a business, and that's not glamorous work. It is tedious, expensive, and quite humbling, but it's also necessary. So this wasn't about scaling or figuring out egotistically where I can take this business or some sort of exit strategy. It was about preparing for true responsibility of all the work that is to come. Before we continue, I just want to say this. If what we're talking about is resonating and you're feeling that nudge to go deeper, there's a few ways that you can work with me. One, you can grab a signed copy of my book on my website or order it in bulk for your team or community. Two, you can take my self-guided course, The Alignment Method. You can join the waitlist for my next private cohort, The Ritual of You. Or you can also bring me into your organization for workshops and group coaching or keynotes that create real and sustainable change. However you choose to engage, thank you for being here and for listening. I appreciate you, and I know that you choose to live and lead with intention. Now let's get back to it. Another powerful shift this year was building the right support. I aligned with people and firms who hold themselves to a standard of excellence. Marketing, social media, publishing, editing, illustration, publicity, creative direction. My creative director and I recently met for lunch, and she's been with me since the very beginning, back when this was just a side hustle, an organic extension of my lived experience and my spiritual growth and my corporate leadership background. And we were reflecting on how much we have done in all of these years. Being able to grow together in that way has meant more than either of us could really put words to. It's like this very deep connection that we never saw coming. And it's turned into just a beautiful relationship and friendship where that level of support is something that I can't imagine not even having in this business. I never wanted a big team, though. I never wanted one just to say that I have one. That's for sure. What I want and what I've designed and what I've attracted is people who care, people who see this work as service and not just output or a means to an end. As you know, Craig joined the business officially in August of 2024 as the Chief Growth Officer. And 2025 was the year I really got to watch him hit his stride. It's been really fun and energizing. And because I believe in authenticity, it has not always been seamless, which we knew would be the case. It was going to be far from perfect, and we were going to have to figure things out as we grew together. I work fast, very fast. And when I'm in the zone, I am in it. I love simplicity and clean lines and clear decisions. Complexity is not my thing. Craig sometimes sees more layers where I see a straight line. And earlier on, we had to work through a lot of those perception gaps in how we both operate. But here is what we have come to find out about working together. He owns research and interviews and the intuitive selection of our partners. His intuition is incredibly strong. Over time, he's come to deeply understand mine, especially when I say no to revenue that looks great on paper and sounds good, but doesn't feel aligned. That discernment has been a real growth edge for both of us. His support has been unreal, and what you see with him is literally what you get. He is genuinely my biggest fan, and for that, I am so grateful. That kind of belief in me changes how I'm able to show up for you. November 5th will forever stand out as one of those moments that feels like it could not have been more perfectly orchestrated. My book launched the same day, and I gave the biggest keynote of my career to over 5,000 people at the Grace Hopper celebration. The invitation came just about a month before. It was one of those divine moments where the universe wasn't whispering, it was delivering. I was so amazed when I was asked to deliver this keynote, and I felt like this fire within me was just lit up. Once I was on that stage, the audience also felt it. It was the first time I had spoken publicly on that scale about the ideas and the teachings inside my book. Writing I Can Fit That In demanded more from me than I ever expected. I had to let go of an editor and hire a new one halfway through the process. It was extremely uncomfortable, but absolutely necessary. Trusting my intuition didn't always feel perfectly aligned, and yet it was also very clarifying at times. I isolated myself more than people realized from events, from friends, and sometimes even from family. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew that this work needed devotion if it was going to leave a real impact on humanity and on this world. So since the launch, the response has been overwhelming in the most grounding way. Articles, interviews, features across Fast Company and Inc. and Business Insider, CBS, and dozens of podcasts. But the moment that truly stopped me was learning that my book was selected for the JP Morgan Next List 2026, one of just only 11 titles, alongside authors and ideas that shape the global business conversations around culture and leadership and human performance. That recognition affirms something deeply meaningful, that these ideas matter, not just personally, but systemically, that leaders are ready to engage with them, not to struggle with them, but to act upon them. What hasn't been as visible as the internal work of 2025. While writing the book, parts of myself resurfaced that I truly thought I had already healed. But healing isn't about burying things deep. It's about changing how you relate to them. I had to reframe old stories, release shame that I didn't realize I was even still carrying, speak truths, many of them, that I hadn't even shared with Craig before, yet I chose to include in the book after really healing these parts of me. This year asked me to shed identities that once protected me but no longer served me. The risks I took were not loud, they were inward, and they were some of the most courageous of my life, many of which I share in my book. I also want to say this clearly. I have an incredible community of supporters. You know who you are. If you're listening, you're one of them. You cheer, you share, you comment, you repost, you reflect back perspectives that matter to you. I see you and I return that support whenever and however I can. That is a part of my DNA. As we look ahead, I feel it in my bones, deep in my soul. We are taking this to the next level in 2026. I am deeply excited to get the messages of this podcast, the book, the soul-led work into more hands, more hearts, and more spaces of leadership. As I look ahead on this year to come, this is my honest sense, formed not just from my own experience, but from the hundreds of conversations that I've had this year with leaders, executives, founders, and high achievers. People are tired, but not lazy. They're ambitious, but disillusioned. Successful on paper, yes, but quietly questioning whether the way they're living and working is actually sustainable, or if it's even theirs. Do they own it? Do they want it? I have felt an internal battle that people are carrying, the tug of war between who they've been and who they're becoming, between staying safe and telling the truth, between meeting expectations and honoring what they actually need and desire. And because of that, here's what I believe will matter most in the year ahead. Discernment, not more effort, not more hustle, not more knowledge and information. Discernment around what stays and what goes. The ways of thinking that keep you stuck or in proving mode. The obligations that are rooted in guilt instead of truth. The relationships, habits, and distractions that quietly drain your energy while telling you they're just part of life. They are just you, that you are who you are. 2026 is not asking you to do more. It is asking you to choose better. And it starts with intention. I invite you to choose one word for this year, an intention for the year, not a goal or a checklist, not something that you need to achieve, but a feeling that you want to experience more of in your life and in your work. Is it peace, freedom, presence, groundedness, clarity, expression? Pick that word and let that become a filter. Let it guide your decisions, help you craft your boundaries, and direct how you spend your time and your energy. And finally, this year, let's really practice listening to your intuition, not that loud, egoic voice of fear, not the one that tells you to keep up or don't do it because it wants to keep you small, but the quieter voice, the knowing within you that already understands what is aligned and what is not. The more that you trust, the less validation you will need from the outside world. And that kind of self-trust changes everything. How you lead, how you choose, how you live, how you show up. That is my sense for 2026. And I think it's going to be a powerful year for those who are willing to listen. So let's all embrace and embody what change is coming within us and around us. And let's truly listen more deeply and intently than we ever have so that we can all choose better.